Yo, what's up? We're back. We're going to be doing another video this week. It's going to be for Derrick Lewis versus Serghei Spivac. It's UFC Vegas 65. We're coming off a really awesome week with UFC 281 where we had the record for most first-round finishes tied, and we also had a title fight where we got two news. Carla Esparza lost her belt to Weili Zhang. She got submitted in the second round, and then Israel Adesanya, man, he was winning the fight 3-1, and Alex Pereira came in, took him out in that fifth round. So got two new champs. It was a really awesome card and definitely a hard card to follow up. But Derrick Lewis and Serghei Spivac are going to try to do that. And just before we get this video started, I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this video, which is CashflowMMA.com. Currently, they're still doing their promotion till the end of the year. If you use the promo code MMAGuru, you will get free access to their bets until the end of 2022. So I definitely recommend you do that. They're on a great run so far this year. They've won a lot of units this year, over 1,000% return on their ROI, and they've been doing a really excellent job. So definitely go check them out, CashflowMMA.com. They're going to have some bets going for you guys this week, and you can get them for free with the promo code. So they're one of the best cappers around, and definitely recommend you go to CashflowMMA.com and check them out. And then outside of that, if you want to go to the Patreon, there's a ton of stuff going on this week, man. There's Invicta tonight. They got Bellator going on, ACA. I think Anthony Pettis has a show going on, LFA, CFFC, one on Prime. So, I mean, there's so many MMA events this week going on. Obviously, we got the UFC on Saturday as well. And then next week, they're going to be doing that PFL card. So put down in the comments, if I get a few comments telling me that they want me to break down that PFL pay-per-view card, then I will do it. So if I can get at least 5 comments telling me they want that PFL breakdown, then I'm going to be dropping a video for that next week. And outside of that, just hit the like button, put some comments down below. Tell me what you think about these fights, who you're betting on, and everything like that. And this first fight of the night here with Natalia Silva and Teresa Bladea, I feel like this is a good fight. I don't know why they have it as the first fight of the night. I think it's one of the higher level fights on the entire card, even though both these girls are early in their UFC careers. If you guys remember, Natalia Silva, she came back from a pretty long layoff earlier this year, and she really impressed. She got the upset victory over Jasmine Jasudavicius. Most people were not giving her much of a chance to win that fight. She was coming off a long layoff. She was an underdog, but showed zero signs of ring rust and dominated, won a decision there. And now she's getting a newcomer to the UFC, but in my opinion, a step up in competition in the young upstart Teresa Bladea. Teresa Bladea, she's undefeated. She's out of the Czech Republic. She's only 20 years old, so very young. But she already has a lot of experience. She went 6-0 as an amateur to go with her 6-0 as a pro. She also has had 3 exhibition bouts, which they weren't MMA fights. They were kind of like a hybrid where it was striking and takedowns, but once you got the takedown, unless you were attacking a submission, they would bring you back to your feet immediately. And it was pretty impressive, in my opinion, that Bladea was able to win those fights against pretty good girls. I mean, she beat Lucy Pudilova, who recently rejoined the UFC, got a win. She beat Maddalena Sormova, who's 11-4. She has some good wins in her own right, Sormova. And then she also beat Lucia Sizbova, who's 6-0 as a pro. She's never been beaten in MMA as an amateur or in those exhibition bouts outside of the fight with Bladea. So Bladea's already beaten some good girls, and that style didn't really give her the best chance to win either, because she's a ground girl that wants to take you down and control you. In that fight, she had to get constant takedowns and kept getting stood back up, and so it was pretty impressive that she was able to beat those girls even without having her, main advantage, which is her top control and ground and pound. But one girl in this fight is going to lose, but I still think they'll stay in the mix, and the other I think is going to be, getting in towards title contention or future title contention, not right away, but getting into those rankings, and I think they can compete with some upper echelon girls. So I think this is a real good matchup. And Teresa Bladea, she's not a great striker. Her wrestling does kind of counteract that. It makes fighters hesitant to pressure, hesitant to commit on her. So she can make it work because she's also tall, long, and rangy. She's going to have a significant height and reach advantage in this fight. And she'll use the long crosses to set up the double. She'll throw a jab, high kick, cross, high kick. But not really the fastest or most fluid striker. She's still hittable. And a fighter that could pressure Bladea, stuff her takedown to keep it standing, definitely could potentially beat her up. But she is someone that is going to continue to get better in the stand-up because her length and her wrestling gives her already advantages built in. And her kicks right now are decent, and they're probably her best asset. She'll stay active with the kicks, round kicks to the legs, body, mix in some head kicks, and she's tough as well. She's not someone that's going to get hit and roll over and very tenacious. So she's a great wrestler. That's really what she goes to. She's big for the division, fast level changes, nice timing on her singles, on her doubles. And when she gets on top, she's a mauler. She has great top control. Against girls with good ground games, I have seen Bladea stun it a bit and not do much. She just will stay active and enough in inside full guard and try to keep the position. I've seen Bladea also get caught in some deep guillotines, front chokes when she shoots in, but she's good at staying calm. She'll gas her opponent's arms out and then, get out of it, get into a more dominant position and, start to take over. In her fight with Carolyn Martins, who I think is the most similar opponent to Natalia Silva that she's fought to date, Bladea did get caught in some guillotines and she was able to get out of them for the most part pretty easily and then control from Martins' full guard for the entire round. She didn't really show urgency to pass or get into more dominant positions and was content to just grind it out in that fight because I feel like she was facing someone that was better than her on the feet and was using smart fight IQ there. Her last fight, she did get swept in the first round against Maia. Maia was able to use a leg lock to switch position, get on top. She almost took the back of Bladea, but Bladea was able to show her explosiveness, was able to reverse position, get on top. And I've seen another fight where Bladea lost position going for an armbar from the back mount, but quickly threw up a triangle and got the finish. And she looks like a beast on the ground, whether she's on top or bottom. And it's not somewhere where you want to be with her. I haven't seen many fighters shoot in on Bladea, but with her stance, she stands really tall. She throws kicks. I do believe she might be susceptible to being put on her back. And she was taken down in her last fight in the second round, but she was able to use a triangle to get back up to her feet. In the third round, she sprawled out on a bad takedown and then got on top. So she showed some takedown defense there, some defensive grappling, but I still think her takedown defense is to be determined. But I think a lot of girls are going to find it hard to control her on the ground, even if they do get on top. And I think Bladea will almost welcome girls taking her down so she can start to work her grappling and create scrambles. And she comes in great shape. She pushes the pace. And she's been able to take quite a few girls out, wilt them, and finish them. She has finished 4 of her 6 pro fights. She finished 5 of her 6 amateur fights. So she's really been able to do a good job with that. And for her opponent, Natalia Silva, she's a good athlete. She's a southpaw. She's fast. She has solid footwork. And she likes to use lateral movement, pull fighters into her kicks or straight punches. Nice round kicks to the body, to the head with the left leg. And she also throw a lot of lead leg attacks, lead leg kicks to the body, to the head, and her leg dexterity and kicks are very fast. She has a good rear cross, good 1-2s, her 3-2s are nice, and her hands are okay. They're not the best, even though they did look a little bit better in her last fight, but she does have good power. And in this fight, I feel like she's going to try to use her footwork to pull Bladea into strikes, get the respect with the power, and then when they clinch, just try to land some big shots and exit the clinch and not try to really stay there. I think she'll probably holster a majority of the kicks here and use her hands, which does take away part of her game. But on the feet, Silva has the advantage, and at range is where she wants to be in this fight. And she's strong as well, Silva. She has good body locks. When she gets on the inside, she tends to try to body lock and hit takedowns. She doesn't really feel as comfortable striking in the pocket. And she's even willing to pull guard, and I've seen her hit some submissions off bottom, off of her back. She has really good arm bars, fast hips. She's going to be dangerous, but in this fight with Bladea, I think she has to try to work back up to her feet and use the submissions to stand up and not play jiu-jitsu so much because I think it's going to be kind of a low likelihood that she catches a submission from bottom on Bladea. And Silva does have 7 submissions. Almost all of them are arm bars, so Bladea kind of knows what she has to look out for there. And Natalia Silva, I think she's going to struggle on the ground and in the grappling realm with Bladea. Bladea's really strong. I think she's going to be able to avoid the submissions from Silva, get Silva tired. She can get on top. We saw Maryna Rodriguez pressure, and it kind of made Silva very uncomfortable, and she began to pull guard, make mistakes. So I feel as Bladea, if she can get on top, she can really start to use her length, pressure, get in the clinch, and just take over the fight as it goes on because she's going to get her tired off the takedowns. And Silva's going to have to keep the distance, stick and move like she did in her last fight. She stuffed all 6 of Jasmine Judavicius takedowns, but I honestly would not be shocked to see Silva even try to mix in some takedowns herself, as she did on Judavicius. But if she does, I just don't feel confident that she's going to be able to control Bladea. And I think her cardio is something that will maybe perturb her from wanting to go for a lot of takedowns because I think Bladea has the edge in a high-paced fight. If Natalia Silva wins this fight, I think it's going to come from hitting an armbar off her back, not really keeping it standing or out striking Bladea. Bladea is legit to me. Her length, her pressure, her wrestling offense, I think is going to make this more of a grappling fight. I think matchup-wise, it's a good matchup to see where Bladea is at because Silva has good arm bars from bottom. She's very athletic, mobile, has pretty good striking, and she's going to pose some issues for Bladea. But I think that Silva's going to be active off her back, and that's going to kind of be the fight. If Bladea can navigate through the submissions and keep Silva down, she's going to get her tired and run away with it to me. Early or in Silva's career, she was finished on the ground 3 times. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Bladea get her out of there in round 2 or 3. So the pick for me is going to be the underdog. I'm going to go with Teresa Bladea here. We did bet on Natalia Silva in her UFC debut as an underdog, and I do think she's a good fighter. Like I said, I think both these girls have top 15 potential. But for me, I'm going to lean towards Teresa Bladea, and I'm going to pick her to win via 3rd round finish. And this next fight, we got 2 bantamweights trying to get their first wins in the UFC. For Brady Hiestand, he hasn't fought in over a year. He tore his ACL, so he needed some time to have surgery, take care of that. And hopefully he should be ready to go on November 19th. It's been well over a year since he's fought, but he's only 23 years old, so I feel like probably he'll recover and keep progressing forward. And he was on the Ultimate Fighter with the torn ACL the entire time, so maybe we'll see a better version of Hiestand here as well. And for Brady Hiestand, he trains with the Sick Jitsu crew in Washington, and he has that same typical style. He pushes the pace, really brings that heavy wrestling style. And Hiestand not having fought over a year is something that you have to kind of worry about. You know, I think he has to win here to keep his job. I think if he loses, he'll probably be cut. 5-3 is not really a record the UFC is going to be looking to keep around. And he is coming off a loss to Ricky Turcios, where that was to win the Ultimate Fighter, so he's 0-1 in the UFC already. For Fernie Garcia, he's a pressure striker. He's basically a boxer. I really haven't seen him throw many kicks, and he is a guy that also lost in his UFC debut. He came in, he was a big favorite. He laid an egg. He kind of, didn't really let his hands go, and Journey Newsom was able to move around and just beat him on volume. And he can't afford to lose 2 fights in a row, especially have another bad performance like that. But he did get a knockout on the Contender Series, so he's shown up already on a big stage before. At 30 years old, he's going to need to come in here and have a big performance. Like I said, he's 7 years older than Heisten, and I think this is do or die for him here. He's training out of Fortis, which Fortis MMA has been on a roll recently, so that's something that's good. And like I said, he is a guy that predominantly a boxer, and he has a good up jab. He holds his hands low, and he can work his sneaky up jab. His jab is fast. He'll use a jab, double jab to close the distance for his straight or overhand right. And he'll try to counter with check hooks. He's pretty good in exchanges. He's hittable, but he has a good chin, so he's willing to brawl. And footwork-wise, he doesn't really have great footwork. I don't think he's the fastest or cuts the cage off very well. His last fight, he struggled to find Journey Newsom. He was hit with counter punches, leg kicks, basically got outstruck in that fight. And he's not that fast. It really just relies on his cardio, his pressure to break down fighters. He has decent boxing on the inside, but really nothing spectacular. He doesn't have knockout power. He did get a KO in the Contender Series, but that's his only knockout win of his career. And he's never been finished by strikes. He's never been finished in general, so very tough guy. And he's not the best wrestler, I would say. He does have some okay wrestling, and he can take down strikers. But, if an opponent who can't really wrestle goes in there with Garcia, I guess he can kind of get the advantage there with the double. But he doesn't have great top control. And I feel like those 3 rear naked choke finishes that he has are against low-level guys. And he's yet to face any wrestlers. I did see him get taken down fairly easily in his fight with Ryan Hayes. He didn't really seem like he was that great off his back either. He was able to get back up to his feet, but Hayes is a journeyman, and I think that a better grappler potentially could hold Garcia down. And we did see Journey Newsom as well, who's another guy that's, I think he's a former wrestler, but more likes to strike in his MMA fights. And he was able to hit some takedowns on Garcia. And Garcia briefly had his back taken in the 3rd round, but he was able to get back up to his feet fast every time. So he has shown good get-ups, at least as of now. But Brady Heisten is going to be the first fighter that's a real wrestler, real grappler that Garcia has fought. So it's a big test for him to see if his grappling is up to UFC level. Cardio-wise, Garcia has great cardio. He doesn't really slow down, but he really doesn't push the pace either. He's too one-dimensional. He doesn't really have that speed or explosiveness, and due to that, he can be in a lot of close fights. He's been in 4 split decisions, and he tends to fight really close if it goes to the scorecards. But Brady Hiestand, he's a wrestler. He embraces the grind and basically tries to get takedowns as soon as the round starts. And he's going to be the faster fighter. He's light on his feet. He has a decent jab, left hook, rear cross. And he basically uses those to open up the double leg and then uses the double leg to open up the hands. So he will come forward and eat shots too, get inside and hit the takedown that way. But very susceptible to punches up the middle, uppercuts, knees. And he needs to figure out how to get past the jab of Garcia at range primarily. And then he has to avoid that left hook. And he has a great chin. He has heart. He has toughness, tenacity. So he's going to be willing to take a ton of damage to win fights. But it's dangerous as well, though, because in any given fight, he could get hit with the right shot and get put out. So far as a pro, he hasn't been knocked out, but he did get knocked out as an amateur in one of his fights. And as far as the wrestling goes, Brady Heisten has good takedowns, excellent back takes, very aggressive with the rear naked chokes, and his cardio is really good. He pushes the pace. He probably is going to be able to dominate if he can get this fight to the ground, and that's what he's going to try to do. He was able to out-scramble, out-grapple fighters like Josh Reddinghouse, who's a veteran, high-level guy. And if he gets a hold of Garcia, I believe he'll be able to get the back and maybe get the submission or grind it out. And his cardio, like I said, is really good if he can make it a wrestling match. But if Garcia can keep it standing, then I think he'll have the better cardio. If Heisten can make it more of a grappling match, I think he'll have the better cardio. So it's going to be kind of a battle of wills here. And Garcia overall, though, is very composed. He doesn't really have a cardio attacking style, and Heisten does. So it's imperative when Heisten gets the takedowns to keep Garcia down, get a breather. And he's only 23, so I think he's going to come in great shape. Training is probably his life right now, and it's going to get the job done. But this is a fight between 2 lower-level guys in the weight. I think that Garcia is going to be really trying to find that check hook knockout or some uppercuts. Heisten, he has bad defense, but a solid chin. And Garcia doesn't really have great power. I think more than likely Heisten's going to be able to find the takedowns and get on top. And I think he could potentially win by first round rear naked choke or decision. If Garcia can keep it standing, he could point his way to a win. But I'm going to lean towards Heisten here. And I'm going to say he wins via first round sub here with a rear naked choke. And continuing through the card here, we got our first women's fight with Maria Oliveira taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. And Vanessa Demopoulos, if you ask me, has overachieved in her MMA career overall and UFC career. She's gone 2-1 in 3 UFC fights. She beat Jinyu Frey in a controversial decision her last time out. And she's a former LFA champion. So we'll see how far she could take it in the UFC. On the feet, she's a bit stiff. She's rigid, but she'll throw heavy overhands, big hooks, decent 1-2s, jab overhand rights. And she's willing to sit in the pocket and exchange. I think that's going to be her best chance to land a big punch and hurt Oliveira. And Demopoulos will try to mix in some kicks, but they haven't really been too effective to me. And sometimes she likes to fight off the back foot. And if she does that here, I think she's going to be in trouble because she's going to be at a big reach and speed disadvantage. She has to pressure in this fight, try to get in the pocket, exchange, land heavy punches, and then eventually get into her world on the ground. And she's a dangerous submission grappler. Her wrestling is not that great. I mean, she did hit a couple doubles in her last fight. I think it looked like her wrestling looked a little bit improved. And she has decent top control, but her takedowns against the cage are really not that great. Her doubles are not that great, even though they looked better in her last fight. And her top control and her danger factor from the top position isn't as there as it is off of her back. She's actually a better fighter when she gets put on bottom. And I feel like Oliveira will probably be able to get back up to her feet if she's taken down. She was able to get back up to her feet after getting taken down against Tabitha Ricci, who's a teammate of Vanessa Demopoulos that I think is a little bit better from the top position. But Maria Oliveira, if she ends up on top of Demopoulos instead of Demopoulos full guard, that's where she's in big danger. I mean, we've seen Demopoulos pull off submissions even when she's semi-conscious, like against Silvana Gomez-Juarez, and she definitely is really, really dangerous off of her back. But for her opponent, Maria Oliveira, she really doesn't have a good resume, but she got the win in her last UFC fight to save her job, and she's making a lot of improvements. She's moved to the United States with Jessica Andrade and her team, and that team has been wrecking shop in the UFC lately. I think Piranha Valley Judo is a gym that needs to get way more credit than they do get. They haven't had a male fighter make it to the UFC to my knowledge yet, but they have one of the best female teams in the world. I mean, they have girls like Maria Oliveira, Jessica Andrade, Estela Nunes, Carol Rosa, Denise Gomez, all those girls in the UFC. And then they have some high-level girls outside the UFC, like Jessica Del Boni, who's top 3 atom weights in the world. They got Joyce Mara, who's a veteran girl, and then Maryna Moroz, who's, I believe, retired, but a veteran of PFL, Bellator. And at 25 years old, for Oliveira, training with those type of girls, she definitely is going to level up. And she has athleticism, she has speed, she has a good frame for the weight class. So I think she already has some advantages, and she's the better striker in this fight overall. She's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, 4-inch height advantage, 7-inch reach advantage, and she also has the superior hand speed, foot speed. And she's going to want to play the matador in this fight. She's going to want to use her footwork and movement to get Demopoulos to chase her and then dart in with multi-punch combos. Usually they're just crosses, but when she gets inside, she will mix in some hooks occasionally. And she'll throw some kicks, but in this fight, I would try to just use the hands. And Oliveira is hittable. She doesn't really move her head, and she blitzes in, and fighters can catch her as she's coming in, but she's someone that likes to get in the pocket and brawl because she's a good chin, she has fast hands, and she has the reach on most girls. And in her last fight, she was really inviting a war, which it shows that she was very confident. And just be a little bit careful and respectful of the power Demopoulos has, but I think that, Oliveira is the superior striker, especially early. As fights go on, she does tend to slow down the footwork and blitzes and try to maintain her gas tank. And she can be, a little bit slower in that second and third rounds. But I feel like her last fight, she showed better cardio. She was able to get a second win in round 3 after slowing down in the second. So that was good to see. And I think she's going to continue to get better, like I said. As far as the grappling goes, she doesn't really have great grappling. She's going to have to fend off the takedowns, keep it standing. And in her fight with Vanessa Demopoulos' teammate, Tabitha Ricci, she did lose essentially by getting taken down quite a few times. But I feel like she did better than expected in the grappling realm in that fight. She was able to work out of some really bad positions like the mount, get back up to her feet against the cage on multiple occasions. She showed good get-ups, and she's solid at, working off the cage, getting back to range when she does get up with her back against the cage. She doesn't let girls hold her there. And her last fight, she showed better takedown defense, even though she did get taken down in the third round. She was facing striker and Gloria DePaula, so it wasn't as big of a threat of a takedown and wasn't as good of a takedown threat when she did went for takedowns. But we even saw Oliveira get a takedown in that fight, which it just shows once again that she's getting more confident and improving in all areas. And the game plan is going to be easy. I mean, she needs to use her speed, her length, her footwork, pull Vanessa into shots, avoid clinching or going to the ground. And she should try to limit the amount of exchanges she gets in with Vanessa, because I think that's Vanessa's best chance to touchy land a shot, rock Oliveira, and change the tide of the fight. And this is a match that I'm really not interested in from a betting perspective. But I think that Oliveira getting that look in the gym, she has a lot of girls that pressure, that are strong, that have good wrestling that she faces. I think that she's getting better with that. And she's probably going to be able to use her length, speed, striking to take a decision. But I just don't trust her because she slows down. Demopoulos gets better as fights go on. And she could potentially make the stand-up close and then hit a couple takedowns and win. But I'm going to go with Oliveira, 29, 28, 30, 27 decision. But a fight that I'm really not too interested in. And this next fight, we got another bantamweight fight with Ricky Turcios and Kevin Natividad. And both these guys are fighting for their jobs, I think. Ricky Turcios did win the Ultimate Fighter, but it was a weak season, and he got exposed a little bit in his last fight. He lost the decision to Ayman Zahabi, who's one of the lower-level fighters in the weight class, and definitely has to have a good performance here to guarantee a spot on the roster. Kevin Natividad, he's 0-2 with 2 knockout losses so far in the UFC. He took a year off, and hopefully he's recovered from those knockouts because he got knocked out twice in 6 months. So that's not good. And we definitely have to see if his chin is still there. But he can't afford to go 0-3 and expect to stay in the UFC. And this to me is a super low-level fight. 2 fighters who are grapplers but tend to strike in MMA. And Kevin Natividad, he's the more technical striker of the two. Short, compact, pretty explosive. And he has some power, but slow and methodical. He plods in a range and tries to come with the big 3-2s, 1-2s, 2-3s, but tends to start slow and get better when fighters start to slow down, and he could start to, cut him off and find his range a little bit better. And in this fight, I feel like he needs to keep that constant pressure try to back up his opponent and then work the 3-2s, 2-3s. He whipped the body pretty effectively, which is probably one of his best assets. And he has some decent hand power, but Natividad doesn't check kicks. He doesn't really have the best defense as he enters range. And he's going to have to figure out how to get past that reach advantage and the kicks that Turcios does throw. In terms of grappling and wrestling, I think Natividad is stronger, a little bit more explosive, and probably has a wrestling edge. But Turcios is a better grappler, I feel. I think Turcios is probably not going to be able to hit takedowns, but he'll likely invite the fight, go into the ground, and try to use Natividad's takedown attempts to create scrambles and get on top. And Natividad should just look to strike, walk down Turcios, slowly but surely make him slower with the body shots and pressure, get him in the pocket, and then show your superior hands. Don't really mess with the grappling. For Turcios, he's kind of an awkward striker. He throws a lot of flim-flam strikes out there. Doesn't really have great hands, but in this fight, I think he's going to want to pressure, but try to stay at range, throw kicks, feint to bring out Natividad's attack, and counter with that left hook. And he has decent kicks. He'll throw them with reckless abandon because he doesn't have fear of being taken down. And I think he'll be the more active fighter on the outside. He can get kicked without getting return shots thrown at him because Natividad doesn't really have much at range. And Turcios in exchanges probably can land that lead hook and rear cross because Natividad is hittable. I don't think Turcios has good hands, but in this fight, I think he can kind of hold his own in the boxing. If Natividad has an edge in terms of wrestling and grappling, I feel like maybe Turcios isn't going to try to get takedowns because of that, but I think that he should try to because he has the cardio to keep shooting, and he needs to be all the way out or all the way in. If he gets down the outside kick out volume, Natividad, and land that chuck hook when he tries to get inside, I mean, good. But if he's struggling with the pressure, then I think he should try to hit the single, even pull guard, and just try to make it a grappling match. And if he can get it to the ground, I think he has the biggest edge, especially if he can get on top. Cardio-wise, both these guys come in good shape, but I would say Turcios has slightly better cardio and puts a little bit more offense out there. Both fighters here, I mean, nothing special to me. I think that Turcios' length and volume will edge the decision. He's more active, and he's been more active too, like in terms of fighting. I still question how Natividad's going to come in off 2 knockout losses in a row. So I'm going to slightly lean Turcios via decision, but this is another fight that I would stay away from betting-wise for sure. And there's another bantamweight fight on this card. There's a lot of bantamweight fights on this card, but this fight should be entertaining here with Miles John and Vince Morales. With Miles Johns, he is coming in here on short notice. So that is something that I think is definitely something you have to point out with Miles Johns because he has cardio issues as it is. Now, with this being a short notice fight, you don't know the quite type of shape he was in. But both these guys are kind of middling fighters in the division. They can produce fun fights and finishes. Miles Johns, he fights out of Fortis, so he's going to be training with Fernie Garcia at least for some of the time that he has been training for this fight, and that's actually a pretty good facsimile with Vince Morales. They have a similar style, even though I think Morales is significantly better. But for Miles Johns, he's 0-1 in 2022. He lost in February by submission, but overall he's 3-2 in 5 UFC fights. I would say even with the winning record, he's underachieved. He was undefeated when he signed to the UFC. He was hyped, and he's gotten 2 sick knockouts, but he's also been finished in both of his losses. And Miles Johns' opponent, Vince Morales, he's had 7 UFC fights. He's 3-4. He's been able to beat more lower echelon guys, but came up short against top 25 level competition. But he's definitely fought the better competition by far in comparison to Miles Johns. He's been in there with opponents like Jonathan Martinez, Chris Gutierrez, Yadong Song. All those guys are in the rankings. So he's coming off a loss to Martinez in May. So both him and Johns are trying to bounce back here. But previous to that, they were on 2-fight winning streaks. So I think both these guys are safe in terms of not getting cut or anything. But the winner is going to be closer to the top 15, and the loser, I think, is going to be turning into like a top 15 type gatekeeper. Vince Morales, he was originally expecting to fight Jose Johnson here, who's a totally different opponent in comparison to Miles Johns. Jose Johnson's a long, rangy striker. Miles Johns is a short, compact wrestler. But Morales stepped up to the plate. He accepted the fight. And this is the first wrestler who Morales is going to have faced in the UFC. So it's a chance for Morales to maybe show off his skills with takedown defense, with grappling. All of the fighters Morales has faced so far outside of Luis Smolka, who is more of a grappler, not a wrestler, were strikers. And Morales is a guy who likes to strike. He primarily is a boxer, slick hands. He holds his hands low so he could attack with that sneaky jab and nice left hook. And he's good at feigning his way into the jab or lead hook. He'll attack with the rear cross, both to the body and the head. He has good 1-2s, jab overhands, and he's really loose and fast with his hands. Good chin. He's good in the pocket. He isn't a super active kicker, but he can change it up, mix in some kicks at times. And the issues that he's had so far are fighters that have good distance control and can kick from range. He doesn't check leg kicks, and that's been a downfall for Morales in several fights. Morales has gotten his legs chopped, and he really couldn't find an answer to get in the pocket or land anything meaningful. And he also is down to brawl, so his defense leaves a little bit to be desired at times. And we saw against a guy like Yadong Song, he was not able to, take the power as good as Song took his power. But that was actually a competitive fight because Vince Morales has a great chin. And like I said, he's down to brawl too. So Morales is a former wrestler, and was his base entering MMA, but he doesn't really use his wrestling at all anymore. First, to keep it standing in box, but I haven't seen him face too many guys that have looked to take him down, so it's hard to rate his takedown defense. He has been taken down in the UFC a few times, but hasn't really gotten controlled by anyone. He's been able to get back up to his feet quickly. He looks like a hard guy to hold down. He did get submitted on the Contender Series against Domingo Pilarte. He got hurt before he got submitted, though, so it's kind of hard to say. And he was also submitted in his third pro fight, so getting him to the ground could potentially bear fruit for Miles Johns. Miles Johns isn't a submission threat, but he may be able to control and have his way on the mat. And Morales is going to have to prove he could stuff takedowns, and if he does get taken down, be able to work back up to his feet in order to win this fight. Pushing the pace here is something Morales is going to want to do. He has a big cardio advantage, and Johns is known to get tired. He also has the luxury of having the full camp here, and Johns doesn't. For Miles Johns, he's an explosive wrestler with the power jab. He'll throw 1-2s, jab overhand rights, but doesn't really offer a whole lot on the feet. He isn't a big leg kicker, but I have seen him throw some leg kicks in recent fights, and I think that would be something that he does need to do against Morales if he is going to win. But I think he's going to struggle with the pressure and combinations here. I think that on the feet, Morales is going to be a bit too much for Johns. I think he's going to have the speed and hand fluidity advantage. Johns is not going to be able to match the volume, I don't think. I think he's going to try to rely on the jab heavily or just land big power shots, but I don't see him being able to control distance with the jab. And I think that Vince Morales can pressure and use his boxing to win this fight. I just don't think he's going to get grinded out and held down. Miles Johns has been able to take some guys down and control them with the double, and he actually does have, real explosive, fast singles and doubles. But he isn't the greatest at finishing his takedowns or holding fighters down for whatever reason. And on top, John has not really been able to be that effective. So I don't think that he's going to be as active hunting takedowns as Morales, because Morales does a pretty good job of maintaining distance, feigning, not overextending. And I also think that he knows that Morales can wrestle and get back up to his feet. And cardio has been a factor for Johns. He tends to slow down. So I think that Morales is going to grind on him with the pressure boxing. I think he's going to be able to do enough in the grappling to stuff takedowns, get back up to his feet if he does get taken down. And I'm going to pick Vince Morales to win this fight as a slight underdog via decision. And continuing through the card here, we got another female fight with Jennifer Maia taking on Maryna Moroz. And this next fight's a crossroads fight for both girls. Jennifer Maia, she's a fighter who's done what Maryna Moroz wants to do. She was a longtime champion Invicta. She did her thing. She had several title defenses there. Came to the UFC, became a top 3 ranked fighter. She fought for the UFC title. She fought a lot of top ranked girls. And recently she's lost 2 fights in a row, 3 out of 4. And this fight's about holding her spot for Maia, staying in the top 10. Maryna Moroz, she's been in the UFC for a long time, longer than Maia has, but she's never really been able to move up in the rankings like Maia did. She's had a lot of layoffs. She's had a lot of canceled fights, which just stunted her growth. And she started 115 pounds before moving up to 25. And she did manage to get in the rankings at 115. She won 3 of her first 4 UFC fights, but she lost 2 fights in a row, moved up to 125. And since then, she's gone 3-0. But she's only had 3 fights in 4 years. So even though she's been undefeated at 125, she's really not been a big factor in the division because of the layoffs. And she had not fought in over 2 years when she returned, fought Maria Agapova in March. She showed no signs of ring rust in that fight. She won via second round submission, dominated in the grappling realm for almost the entire fight. And she's fighting for the second time in a calendar year for the first time since 2016. So if she wins, she'll definitely get ranked. And this is the time for Moroz to make her move, get in the title picture if she's ever going to do it. On the feet in this fight, I favor Jennifer Maia. Moroz has the height and reach advantage and a decent jab, but she doesn't have power. She throws some decent combinations off the jab, but it's mostly flim-flam strikes. And Moroz does do a good job attacking the body. And she does that to set up her takedowns in the clinch. But she doesn't like to be pressured. She doesn't like to be hit very much. And I think that Maia is going to pressure in this fight. And I think she's going to have the superior boxing and power. Maia has nice hands, good 1-2s, good hooks on the inside. And she's mean. I think even in losses, she's showing improvement. She's not losing motivation. Her last fight, she was very competitive on the feet against Manon Fiorot, who I think is someone that fights similar stand-up style to Moroz, but a much higher level of that. And if Maia can keep this fight standing, I see her being the fighter that goes forward, goes first, lands the more effective, powerful shots. Moroz is going to need a clinch, try to get the double underhooks, control against the cage, hit the body locks, and win that way. Moroz is good on top, but she's not really faced any fighters in recent fights that are good on the ground or able to get back up to their feet like Maia will look to do. She did fight Mayra Bueno Silva, and if you remember in that fight, she got beat up really bad in the third round after having a couple rounds where she had some success controlling on top, and that's the only girl that she fought that is somewhat of a grappler. And I think Maia is much stronger, much harder to take down, and much better in the clinch. I don't think that Moroz is going to be able to stall out in the clinch in this fight like she has in her other fights. I don't believe that Moroz has high finishing upside, and she has a tendency to get tired in fights. And Jennifer Maia is a fighter with a ton of championship experience who gets better as fights goes on. And I think that Maia is going to have the superior cardio, land more in exchanges. I think she's going to avoid getting held against the cage and stalled out. I think if Moroz gets a takedown or in the clinch gets a cage, Maia will be able to use her strength and technique to get back to her feet or get off the cage. I think she has more high-level experience. And I think the cardio and the toughness advantages are enough for me to edge the fight to Maia. And I think she'll look semi-dominant in this fight. I think that Moroz, if she wins, she's going to look good too. She'll be able to win with the grappling. But I think that Maia is going to kind of show that she's still there. I mean, she lost to Manon Fiorot, but if you guys remember, I mean, she arguably won a round. She landed a lot of shots. She landed a head kick. And I think that if she can keep it standing, she's going to be significantly better. And on the ground, I just don't think that Moroz is going to be able to control her or grind her out in the clinch like she has been doing against these lower level inexperienced girls. So I think Maia is just going to show that maybe Moroz's win streak is more due to the level of competition that she's been facing, and Maia is still in the mix as an upper echelon girl. I think she's going to be able to get the win here by decision. And this next fight, we got a flyweight fight. We got Zhalgas Zhumagulov taking on Charles Johnson. And both these guys were champions in organizations outside the UFC, but as of now have not been able to translate that to success in the UFC. Zhumagulov is on his last legs. He's 1-4 in 5 UFC fights. And prior to coming to the UFC, he had already put in a lot of work. He beat guys like Tyson Nam, Tagir Ulanbekov, Ali Bagatinov. So I think those victories, on top of having some close fights against good guys in the UFC, have given him more rope to be able to lose 4 of his first 5 UFC fights and stay in the company. And he's only lost fighters ranked inside the top 15. His last fight with Jeff Molina, I actually thought he deserved a win as well. So he could be coming off a win here if there was different judges. Charles Johnson, his opponent, is the winningest champion in LFA history. He was able to defend the LFA belt twice before getting the call to come over to the UFC. And the UFC gave him a hell of a first fight in Muhammad Makayev, and Johnson took 0 damage, but just was held down and out-grappled for 3 rounds. And now he's going to try to avoid going 0-2 in the UFC. Both these fighters are over 30. They're on the older side for flyweight, so a win is pretty imperative. The loser is probably going to be handled their walking papers, especially if it's Zhalgas Zhumagulov. And I don't have a lot of interest in this fight from a betting perspective. Both these fighters are more defensive than offensive. They don't tend to be very high volume. A lot of fights they're in tend to be close or even split decisions. Charles Johnson is very long rangey, good job covering up and defending, blocking everything, and then looking for big counter shots. He feints, he switches stances, very sharp. He has good one-shot attacks when fighters leave openings, and also has good kicks, good front kicks, good round kicks, good knees. And he's good when he lets his hands go. He's fast, he's accurate, but can just be too defensive at times, back up, cover up, wait, not do too much of anything. In this fight, I think there could be a lot of staring in the mirror with Zhumagulov. Zhumagulov, he's a guy that likes to use his footwork, pull fighters into overhands, get takedowns. In this fight, I think he throws too wide looping, and after Johnson gets his timing, he's going to be able to snipe Zhumagulov and land more shots on him than Zhumagulov lands on Johnson. But Zhumagulov is going to want to try to grapple, get in on the legs, push fighters to the cage. He can control cage push, decent back takes against the fence, and he was able to control Jeff Maddalena for long periods of time. And he isn't the greatest with his top control. It's more like control against the fence and in the clinch. But in this fight with Charles Johnson, I think Johnson is going to show that he's not as bad of a grappler as he kind of looked like he was against Mikhaev. I think that he's going to be able to hit some scrambles in this fight and use his length to get on top a couple times. And I think he'll also have the cardio edge. So I'm going to give this fight to Charles Johnson here. I think he can use his scrambling, anti-grappling ability to keep it mostly on the feet and get the better of it by throwing straight, short shots as opposed to looping shots that Zhumagulov would throw. And Johnson can't just let Zhumagulov stall the fight against a cage or hit takedowns and win the fight like Mikhaev did. If he doesn't allow that, I think he can use, his superior cardio, striking, and length to win a decision in this one. So I'm going to go with Charles Johnson to bounce back in the win column, pick up his first UFC win here, and stick around. And this next fight, this should be an entertaining fight with Della Maddalena taking on Danny Roberts. And the UFC is looking to build up Maddalena in this fight. Maddalena is 2-0 in the UFC, has 2 highlight reel finishes, and they're trying to keep that trend going against a finishable opponent in Danny Roberts. Danny Roberts has been a fun action fighter for the UFC for a long time now. He's been up and down as far as performance goes, but he's been able to maintain a spot on the roster for almost 8 years. He's coming off a loss to Francisco Trinaldo by decision. That was about 6 months ago. He was rocked hurt badly several times in that fight, and I think he probably should have taken a little bit more time off, but he's 35, and this is a huge opportunity for Roberts to bounce back, get a ranked opponent with the win. Maddalena is a huge favorite, so if Roberts can win, that would be a big statement and kind of get him back in the mix. But as far as how the fight goes down, in my view, I think Maddalena is going to get the KO. We've seen Danny Roberts fight a lot now. He's a southpaw boxer with power, but he's a brawler. He could stay technical and try to land his power right hook or left cross if fighters overextend and chase him. But against technical guys that can pressure and control distance, or against fighters that make Roberts come to him, Roberts can struggle. He'll open up and try to wane in, and that's when he can be countered. And he's been finished by strikes 3 times in the UFC. He's been hurt in more fights than that. Neither of these fighters are grapple first, but I think Maddalena is the better grappler as well. He can probably hit takedowns if he sets him up and win the scrambles. And I think if he's taken down, he can back up to his feet. Maddalena is a pressure fighter. He's slick, technical boxing, finds the chin really effectively. He's very accurate. He'll rip the body to come up to the head, and when he hurts someone, he smells blood and usually gets that finish. He's finished 11 of his 12 wins, 10 knockouts. Danny Roberts is a guy that is going to get drawn up by the feints and the slickness of Maddalena. I think he's going to come in not defensively sound and get countered and knocked out. Roberts got super close getting put out against Francisco Trinaldo twice. And against a fresher finisher in Maddalena, I think Maddalena is going to show him the door. Maddalena is more of a slick technical striker. He has superior grappling. He's younger. He has the better cardio durability. Roberts is always live because he has a tendency to, make fights ugly. And he has power. He has that power left cross. If you can get the young guy to brawl, he has a puncher's chance. But I think he's really up against it here. And I'm going to go with Della Maddalena via first round knockout. And up next here, we got Muslim Salikhov taking on Andre Fialho. And in my opinion, in terms of just entertainment value, this is going to be the best fight on the card. Yeah, with both these guys are both knockout artists. Muslim Salikhov is a beast. I mean, he's already a legend in my eyes. Anyone that has almost 100 knockouts, you have to respect. He's 38 years old now at this point. He did get knocked out in his last fight. He's coming off of the knockout just 4 months after. So it's a little bit alarming, and I think he should have taken some more time off. But he, like I said, 38, I think he probably feels some pressure to get going, and he's 5-2 in 7 fights, so it's a must win for the veteran here. I think a loss could get him released, so definitely he's taking a risk here. But Andre Fialho's hype train deflated a little bit in his last fight. He got some fanfare. He got back-to-back fights in less than a month. He won them both by first round knockout, and then he took another fight like 3 weeks after. So he had 3 fights in 3 months basically. And the third fight against Jake Matthews, he got knocked out in the second round, which was his last fight. And he's taken, 5 or 6 months off, 5 months off since that fight. So he also is coming back really fast after a knockout loss. And he took damage the whole year. So this is a tough fight to call, in my opinion. Both these fighters are coming off of quick knockout losses, or coming back quick off the knockout losses. So you don't really know how that's going to affect either of them. And they also both can be low volume. Andre Fialho tends to rely on the knockout, whereas Salikhov is a knockout artist, but I think he's a little bit better in decision fights. He's a little bit better at pointing. And for Fialho, he's a really slick boxer, long arms. He likes to pressure fighters, try to get him in the pocket, and then work his sharp hands. And he'll work his jab to open up combinations, and doesn't really do the best when he has to go first, and he isn't high volume, but he is a really, really good counter puncher. He's really good at when fighters overextend or make a mistake. He makes them pay with that left hook, with that straight right hand. He has one of the cleanest left hooks in the game, man. Real tight. And on the inside, he has really nice uppercuts. He doesn't throw too many kicks. I've seen him throw a few leg kicks, a few front kicks, but sparingly. And pretty much a headhunter. You don't really see him go to the body. You don't really see him go to the legs. He's mostly just trying to knock you out. And he has poor cardio. If he can't get the finish in the first round, he can be an iffy proposition to win. He has 13 knockout wins. 12 have been in the first round. And defense-wise, Fialho can chase guys, get touched with shots as they move around him. He also doesn't move his head, and he's willing to brawl. His chin to me is a little bit questionable. I also don't like that this is 4th fight in 7 months, and he did get rocked in this fight with Cameron Van Camp, then got knocked out by Jake Matthews. So I doubt he's 100% entering here. He's also a subpar wrestler grappler. I wouldn't be shocked to see Muslim Salikhov try to hit a takedown or two early, as he did against Li Jiangli. He won the fight in the first round by hitting a takedown. So Fialho has to be ready for that. Fialho stands very upright, so he can be light on his feet, move in and out effectively, pop that jab, but it also gives up the takedown easy. And in this fight, he probably won't have to deal with the heavy dose of wrestling or anything, but if he does get taken down early, it could potentially just give him something to think about, get his feet to stop moving, and give Muslim an easier night. So Fialho is okay takedown defense initially, but he doesn't have good chain wrestling, and when you get him down, his get-ups aren't good. So I wouldn't be shocked if in round 1, Muslim surprised him with the takedown and won the round that way. Fialho has to kind of be aware of that and know that that could potentially be a thing that could happen. Fialho has also lost 4 of his last 5 fights that have gone past round 1. He's only 4-4-1 overall in fights that have been past the first. So historically, his cardio is definitely an issue. And if this fight gets out of the first round, maybe it would be a smart thing to go put a live bet on Muslim Salikhov. But the king of spin, Muslim Salikhov, he's an incredibly talented striker. On the feet, he has a wide array of strikes. He has a much wider array of strikes than Andre Fialho does. And he's more technical, in my opinion. But he's just older now at 38. A lot of his style is predicated on reflexes. So obviously, if you slow down even just a little bit, that could be the end of you being effective. And Salikhov wants to maintain the center in his fights. He pressures his opponents. He fakes, feints, controls distance, throws some kicks, and when the fighters come to him, he'll slip counter. He has really good head movement, really fast, and he can counter with the lead hook with the backhand. Great timing, power, accuracy, and he fights smart. He doesn't brawl. He's not going to get Fialho the fight he wants in the pocket. He's always going to be defensively sound, moving. He has great kicks as well. He has nasty spinning attacks, seamless spinning back kicks, and he has really good spinning back fists as well. He's good at seeing fighters' shots coming, slipping just out of the way for return shots. And these days, he's been getting touched more as he tries to evade and get just out of the way. So in this fight, he has to be very careful because he got knocked out against the Leech. And now he's facing another guy that is real, accurate, tight puncher. So if he gets clipped with the wrong shot, we could see him get put out. But I still think that Muslim has the edge defensively overall in comparison to Fialho, and that could be the difference in this fight. And Muslim has improved his grappling and wrestling over the years, but still very much a striker. He has decent level changes to clinch takedowns. His last fight, he was able to catch a kick at the leech down and control him on top in the first round. He isn't the greatest, but he can hold fighters down and kind of just control position. And in this fight, I don't think he's going to be coming in here looking to be an all-American wrestler or anything, but I do think he might look for a takedown or two. And Salikhov fights at a slower pace, but he can maintain his cardio speed power for 3 rounds, and he's definitely the better conditioned athlete. And I got to go with Salikhov here. I'm just a little bit worried about the age and him getting knocked out 4 months ago. Fialho's a heavy hitter. If he connects, it could be lights out, but Fialho's pretty easy to read. I mean, you just have to look out for the check hook in that straight left or straight right. And I think that Salikhov is going to be able to see those shots. I think he's going to be able to control the pace and distance of the fight. And I think his defense, his footwork, his wider array of strikes is going to be the difference. And I'm going to go with Muslim Salikhov via second round or third round TKO. I'll say second round after Fialho starts to slow down a little bit. I think Muslim's going to catch him and knock him out. And I mean, this is a stinky fight right here with Chase Sherman, Waldo, Cortes-Acosta. I mean, I'm not going to spend a long time breaking this one down. I mean, Chase Sherman, he's a fighter that's been in the UFC for a long time, but mostly been a fighter who kind of jobs out, loses prospects, even low-level fighters. He's 4-9 in 13 UFC fights. He basically comes in there and UFC knows he's going to brawl, have a fun fight, so they keep him around. But he's coming off of a win. He is training with Kill Cliff FC now, so maybe that'll help him improve. He is only 33, which is a little hard to believe, but it's very hard to trust him to perform at this point. 2 up and down. And he had a fight 2 weeks ago with Josh Parisian and fizzle out. It got canceled. So hopefully the UFC told him to stay in shape. They'll get him on a card in a couple weeks, because if not, maybe he went out, partied, or ate a lot, and he's not in the right shape or mind state for this fight. But if he stayed the course, then this could potentially be a good opportunity for him to win 2 in a row, because he's facing a fighter in Waldo, Cortez-Acosta, who's still very green, coming off a tough fight just 3 weeks ago. And Waldo Cortez-Acosta, he won his UFC debut. He's undefeated, 8-0, and he just debuted October 29th. So he's coming back 3 weeks after that fight, and he showed in that fight that he still has a long way to go. He got the win, but Jared Van Der exposed some holes in Acosta's game. He battered the lead leg of Acosta, really forced him to dig deep. And Acosta showed great heart in that fight and the will to win. And I think, if these guys were just fighting without Acosta having just fought a few weeks ago, I think I would lean Acosta all day. We've seen Justin Ledet in there with a similar opponent, a tall guy that can box, and Justin Ledet. And that was a long time ago, but Justin Ledet just boxed his head off and really just used the jab super effectively. And I think Acosta is an even better boxer, faster hands, a little bit more power, and a little bit bigger, more dangerous than a guy like Justin Ledet. So I think that you'll be able to box Chase Sherman up with that jab at the rear cross, really land a lot of effective strikes. And he's high volume. His last fight, he showed that he has that cardio and he has toughness, and he's willing to eat a lot of shots, keep coming forward, stay in your face, and break you. He had to really dig deep to win that fight. And as far as the grappling goes, I mean, that's something that Cortez-Acosta is going to have to keep working on and obviously get better at. But in this fight, there's not going to be a threat of him getting taken down. So in terms of that, that's going to be advantageous for him. But Chase Sherman, the guy has good leg kicks. I think that's what's kind of making me nervous in this fight, because Waldo Cortez-Acosta did get his leg battered, man. I mean, his legs were really beat up in that last fight with Jared Van Der. Come back 3 weeks, they're not 100%. And Chase Sherman, those hard leg kicks. So if he goes out there and can really chop down Cortez-Acosta's leg, maybe he could get the better of it. And who knows? I mean, he did, I guess, look a little bit better in his last fight with Van Der. He was able to get the 3rd round finish, which usually you don't see Sherman having the type of gas to be able to get a finish in the 3rd round. So I do think that, maybe the move to Kill Cliff FC could pay dividends. But I like Waldo Cortez-Acosta as a prospect. I told you guys the last time that he fought that I think he could potentially be a, fringe top 15 guy, even though he still has a long way to go. And I have to edge him getting the win here. I just think his toughness and his durability, along with his cardio, heart, and boxing, is going to be more than Chase Sherman. I think he's going to be willing to dig deeper than Sherman and probably get him out of there in that 2nd and 3rd once Sherman's cardio and gas tank fails him again. But this is another fight. I think the line is off. I think it should be a little bit closer, just due to the fact that Cortez-Acosta is coming off a rough fight just 3 weeks ago, and he took a lot of leg damage, which that's something that Chase Sherman is pretty good at. So I think Sherman has a chance here more than he would normally against Cortez-Acosta to come in here and pull the upset just because of the circumstances. But I'm still going to lean towards Cortez-Acosta coming in here and getting the finish in the second or third with this boxing over a tired Sherman. Man, I mean, the co-main event, we got another fight where it's really kind of difficult to make a prediction on it. Two guys that I think are, near that top 15 at light heavyweight, but they also have a lot of things that I don't like about him. Fernie and Nzechukwu, I mean, this guy has a lot of things going for him in terms of his frame. He's 6'5", he has 83-inch reach, one of the longest in the UFC. He's going to have a 8-inch reach advantage here. Super athletic, and the guy has great cardio as well. I mean, he has a lot of really good things about him, but he just sometimes in his fights, he doesn't show up, he doesn't perform, he doesn't do anything, man, and he gives guys opportunities to just tee off on him. He's shelling up, he's waiting for the right moment, giving up super easy takedowns. And with Cutelaba, we got a guy that's kind of like the complete opposite. Cutelaba shows up every time and he comes hard, but then he can't maintain that same type of, intensity and cardio and output that he has in that first round. Falls off a cliff and usually gets finished if he can't get the finish himself in round one. So one thing about E1 that you can say is the level of competition that he's been facing in comparison to Kennedy, it's night and day. He's been fighting a lot better opponents, and he just came off losing to Johnny Walker and Ryan Spann, who are both, you could say what you want about those guys, but they're in the top 15. They're dangerous. And Fernie Nzechukwu has never fought someone like a Ryan Spann, like a Johnny Walker. And yeah, I mean, I feel like with E1 in this fight, he's going to want to get the takedowns with the single leg. And we've seen Fernie Nzechukwu really show bad single leg defense and get dominated against guys like Danilo Marquez for almost 3 rounds before pulling that victory out of the jaws of defeat. And with Cutelaba, though, the thing is, it's like, he does wrestle, he does get some single legs, land some ground and pound early, controls. Is he going to be able to wrestle for 3 rounds, keep that pace? Because Fernie Nzechukwu, he's a guy that I think is going to be difficult to finish, man. I mean, he did get finished in that one fight against Dong Jung, but on the feet, he's very defensively minded. He doesn't really leave a lot of openings. And Cutelaba throws real wide shots. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to knock you out with some technical shot you don't see coming. So I think that Fernie is going to be able to block and defend a lot of shots Cutelaba throws, even if he's getting teed off on in the first round and Cutelaba is the one doing all the offense. I still think Kennedy will stay safe, and Fernie has the cardio to come back and get the win. He doesn't get down on himself either. He's gotten several comeback victories. And in terms of the grappling, I mean, like I said, we have seen Kennedy get dominated by certain guys, and I think that E1 has pretty good wrestling. He's been going to his wrestling a lot more in recent fights. He's gotten takedowns against Spann. He got a takedown against Walker. He was able to grind it out against Devin Clark. He dominated, finished Khalil Roundtree on the ground. So he's shown some finishes and some things on the mat. And if he can get some takedowns and consistently hold down Kennedy, then maybe he could win the fight. But I think on the feet, I think Kennedy is a little bit too technical and long. And I think eventually once E1 gets tired of, because Kennedy's going to have good defense and not allow him to get knocked out early, that he's going to be able to get the advantage on the feet with the front kicks, with the long strikes, and start to take over there. And it's just going to come down to if Cutelaba can hold him down for 3 rounds, or if Kennedy is going to make him work enough to get him tired, get back up to his feet, defend some takedowns, and then be able to take him out once he starts to gas out. Kennedy in his last fight showed like way better grappling and wrestling than he ever had, and he finished Carl Roberson on the ground, but Carl Roberson's kind of a flake. It's hard for me to really read a lot into that, if it's really improving in the grappling in that area or what, but I think Cutelaba is going to be a lot stiffer cast in terms of the grappling if they do end up grappling with each other. And man, I mean, it's really hard for me to come up with the guy that I'm going to pick confidently in this one, but I'm going to go with Kennedy just because I think he's better defensively, he has better fight IQ, and he probably is the guy that I think is going to be able to keep the pace and win as the fight goes on. So I think Cutelaba might have a good first round, get a takedown. I think that he might be able to do well in the second early, but I think Kennedy's going to start to take over. And I'm going to go with Kennedy via 3rd round TKO. We've seen Cutelaba get finished in the 3rd round a couple times, and we've seen Kennedy get a few 3rd round finishes as well. So I think that that's something that you could potentially target as a bet too, but I don't have a lot of confidence in either guy winning this fight because I think that Cutelaba could go in there and hit takedowns and win that way. Have hell, I mean, obviously he always has a chance to get a first round knockout too if you're in a Cutelaba fight. And Kennedy, he hasn't really fought this level of competition yet, so it's going to be, a step up. And if Kennedy wins and looks as good as he did against Roberson and starts to turn the corner, I mean, maybe he could come in and start to become a higher level prospect, but he hasn't shown that yet. He hasn't really put a lot of performances together in a row looking good. So it's going to be a chance for him to do that. And I am going to pick him here via third round finish, but not really one of my more confident picks on the card here. And then we got the main event here. Derrick Lewis, he's going to be main eventing again for like over a 10th time, I would say. I bet you he's main evented over 10 cards in the UFC. He's been a mainstay guy. Taking on Serghei Spivac, who this is going to be Spivak's first main event. So I don't think that's really going to effective. I mean, Spivak's a guy that is real nonchalant. He is composed in there when he fights. And I don't think it's going to be like he's going to let the moment get the best of him. And he also trains in Vegas, so he's going to be right there. And he's probably even, seen that cage before, maybe even been in there before and sparred and things like that. I know he's fought in there too. So obviously he's going to be used to kind of where he's at. There's not going to be a big crowd contingent there booing him and all that. So I don't think that the fanfare that Derrick Lewis has in most fights is really going to be a big factor in this one. I don't think the crowd is going to be getting on Spivak or anything or giving Derrick Lewis a boost. And I mean, this is a difficult fight to call, in my opinion, because you look at Derrick Lewis and 37 years old. He's been in the UFC forever, man. I mean, he's probably outside of Andre Arlovsky or maybe another guy that I'm forgetting, Frank Mir or something. He probably has the most UFC fights ever. I mean, he's up there. He has a ton of fights, ton of victories, ton of knockouts. And historically, if you look at Derrick Lewis against these grappling guys, especially a lot of these Euro grapplers, he's been able to beat him, man, and knock him out. And it's just kind of like you have to wonder, is this the time where Derrick Lewis is turning into that washed up fighter, the lower part of his career? Because he got knocked out quick his last fight. He's lost 3 out of 4. He had 2 fights against the higher level guys where he got to fight Strogan for the belt and didn't show up in that one. And then he had the Tai Tuivasa loss where, I mean, that one, he almost finished Tuivasa and then he got finished himself. So that was a back and forth fun fight. But with this fight, we got a guy in Spivac who is kind of a bad matchup for Derrick Lewis. He's a guy that has good boxing, good pressure, and good wrestling. And if he pressures Lewis, gets inside, gets the takedown, gets on top, gets him tired, then hey, I mean, he's shown really good ground and pound, really good control. And Spivak could just maul Derrick Lewis and beat him down and take him out. And I see a lot of people going with Spivak confidently. They're thinking Spivak's just going to take this guy out. He's going to outbox Derrick Lewis, take him down, and beat him up on the ground and finish him off. But, man, I mean, we haven't really seen too many guys that are grapplers be able to take down and control Derrick Lewis. I mean, Daniel Cormier did it. Besides that, I'm kind of struggling to remember anyone that's been able to take down, control Derrick Lewis, and beat him with the grappling game plan, especially in a 5-round fight. This isn't 3 rounds. He has 5 rounds to go in there and potentially knock him out. And Spivak could get him in a bad position on the ground and finish him, but on the feet, I don't think he has the power, and I don't think he has that. I don't know, man. I feel like he's too small. I think Derrick Lewis is going to surprise everyone again, man. I think he's going to come back in here and get another win and get a first-round KO. And I know I don't really have like a big technical analysis for this one, but Derrick Lewis has that, fuck you, have to stand up defense when he goes to the ground. I think he's going to be able to use his strength to deny some takedowns, get back up to his feet. And we've seen Spivak kind of struggle against fast, explosive power punchers. He got knocked out against Walt Harris. He got knocked out against Tom Aspinall. And I'm just not ready to say Derrick Lewis is totally washed up and Serghei Spivac is going to come in here and finish him off. I mean, we saw Derrick Lewis knock out guys like Curtis Blades, man. Guys that I think are higher level wrestlers, much bigger, much more athletic, faster than Spivak. Spivak, I mean, he's getting better. He's improving quite a bit. And I know a lot of people are going to be betting him this week. A lot of people are going to be on him. But I'm going to go with the other side, man. I'm going to go with the Texas boy. I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis. First round knockout. I think he's going to come in here. I think Spivak's going to be trying to go for takedowns early. I think they might clinch up. Lewis is going to show his strength, disengage from the clinch, flurry on him against the cage or something, and just take him out. I think it's going to be a pretty devastating, brutal knockout for Lewis. I think he's going to kind of show that I can still beat these guys in the top 10. Maybe I'm not going to be the champ, but I'm still here. I'm still going to be around. So I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis, man. I'm not sold on this Spivak hype yet. I know probably gonna be one of the only ones. But I remember when Derrick Lewis fought Chris Daukaus, a lot of people were going all over Chris Daukaus. I remember when Derrick Lewis fought Blades, it was kind of the same thing. So I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis, man. I'm going to say he's able to go in there, use his size, use that kind of anti-grappling game that he does have, use his experience over 5 rounds. I mean, Spivak, he's been beating these lower level guys, man. He's not been in there with anyone like a Derrick Lewis. I think it's going to be kind of a rude awakening for Spivak, and I think Derrick Lewis is going to maintain his position. I think he's going to get a knockout. I mean, it's a must-win for Derrick Lewis, too. If he loses 4 out of 5, I'm not saying he's going to get cut, but probably won't be in the main events anymore, and he won't be an upper echelon guy. So I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis, come in here and get the win, man, bounce back. Serghei Spivac, he's 27, and if you look at the heavyweight division historically, not a lot of guys that are like in their 20s have been moving up and beating these upper echelon guys that are experienced. They usually tend to lose, even when they're the favorites. So I think Derrick Lewis, has some value as well with the money line. I mean, I think that should be a pick 'em, or he should be the slight favorite just off of experience, even with Spivak's winning streak currently. And I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis, first round knockout. And as far as my most confident pick goes in my parlay of the week, for my most confident pick, I'm going to go with Jack Della Maddalena. And for the play of the week, I'm not going to do a parlay. I'm just going to do a play of the week on Teresa Bladea to win as the underdog here. I think she has a good chance. I think she should be like a -150, not a plus money underdog. So I'm going to go with Teresa Bladea to get the win in that fight. And so there you have it, guys. It's a full card breakdown prediction video for UFC Vegas 65, Derrick Lewis versus Serghei Spivac. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something from it. And if you want to, hit that like button, put a comment down below. Tell me who you think's going to win the main event, who you're betting on, things like that. And if you want to get some extra content this week, there's a ton going on in MMA with Bellator, with ONE FC, with LFA, with CFFC. We got Centurion MMA. We got Invicta today. We got Anthony Pettis doing a show. All these cards have lines on them. So, yeah, man, I'm probably going to be looking into quite a few fights, trying to find some bets for you guys there on the Patreon, make some money, and, get over 100 units for the year and, continue to keep that ball rolling over there. So, thanks for watching this video, guys. I'm going to be back like always. Like I said at the top of the video, if you guys put 5 to 10 comments down below telling me you want the PFL pay-per-view championships breakdown video next week, then I will put that together for you guys. And besides that, I'll be back for the next UFC, and I'll talk to you guys later.